just wanted to share with people, first of all, this is like one of my good friends, one of my beloved brothers.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. Someone who, go back a few years with and really bonded, alhamdulillah, and we're able to work on a few things together over time, and really looking forward to support your mayoral run, which is going to be something hopefully you can talk about with us today. Let me just, and you can add if there's anything out of date on this bio, but I don't think people know Basheer is actually from Brooklyn, New York City. Which part of Brooklyn, by the way?
Bed-Stuy, do or die, Bed-Stuy, baby.
Okay, mashallah. Originally from Brooklyn, New York, he's a graduate of Martin Luther King High School in Cleveland, Ohio, and Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. At Morehouse, in addition to maintaining a 3.0 graduate grade point average, he was involved in many school organizations, including hosting the Jasmine's Cafe, Search for Truth Poetry Night, and he walked the Burning Sands. I'm not going to say what that means. A firm believer in giving back to the community, Basheer is part of BRIC, Brotherhood, Respect, Intelligence, Conduct, and Knowledge, which has many community service initiatives, including reading to preschool children and feeding the homeless. And of course, he's now city councilman in the 7th Ward in Cleveland, Ohio, which I was able to visit, and there's a podcast where we're Cleveland Rocks, we're hanging out and really seeing the great work he's done. He is also a published author of poetry who has been writing since the age of 11, and he has had the opportunity to perform at the renowned Apollo Theater. Of course, those of us in New York, that's going to create already a lot of love for you. His poetry has won countless competitions, including the acclaimed Youth Pepsi Essence Award in 1999, and he has been featured in Essence Magazine, the Cleveland Call Post, and Plain Dealer newspapers, and on several radio stations around the country. He has also had the honor of being saluted as one of Cleveland State University's great African-American men and Cleveland Life's magazine's 25 Leaders of Tomorrow. And I would say you're a leader now, alhamdulillah. Basheer travels internationally to speak at events and has opened up for Russell Simmons' Deaf Poetry Jam at Emory University, Tavis Smiley's Covenant of Black America in Cleveland, Ohio. In 2008, the Democratic presidential nominees, Barack Obama's rally at the TRC campus. Recently, he signed a contract with ESPN to do the pre-Heisman presentation for one of his longtime best friends, Troy Smith, who won the award in 2006. I think that was kind of back in the days, but alhamdulillah. He recently, as everyone knows, is a city councilman in the city of Cleveland, 7th Ward. He's also released CDs. I'll speak for a change. The guy has bars, mashallah. The guy has more bars than Hershey's. I'm just gonna leave it at that. He's got more bars than a candy shop, mashallah. And currently, he's just doing so many things. He had a radio show, Basheer Jones and Company morning show in Cleveland for a number of years. I don't know if you still have that show, but that was like a powerful show. And he serves as a public relations communication director, or did, for everyone knows who Troy Smith is, mashallah, for the Troy Smith Foundation. And now he's wearing the hat of a councilman, and we hope, inshallah, that it will be the hat of mayor of Cleveland, inshallah. So it is a blessing to have you, brother. And people don't know, we have a very special relationship. Alhamdulillah, that goes deep. Whenever I'm in Cleveland, wherever I am, he comes and picks me up, and we spend some time together, and I get to see firsthand the work that you're doing. So I thought what we'd like to hear from you is just kind of the pulse of what's going on in America, how you're feeling about it, how you would share it, like to talk with us about that. And then some of the things you've done in Cleveland to take on like structural change, right? To really change. Last time I met you, were talking about getting free Wi-Fi in the whole ward, like very substantial structural change. So if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and then kind of the pulse of things now, and how we can as Muslims contribute to pushing America to being much more just, inshallah. Tafadhal, akhi.
Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Imam Suhaib is one of my closest brothers, somebody that I love tremendously, and his words mean a lot to me. His example means a lot to me, and his pain is my pain, his joy is my joy. And I can remember him calling me one day, and he said something to me, and I'm sure he says things to a lot of people, but he says this thing to me where he says, "Brother, you are living the prophetic legacy." And that touched me. It touched me deeply. because, you know, I'm a third generation Muslim. My grandparents are Muslim. My mom and dad Muslim. I'm Muslim. My children Muslim. But I had never heard the idea of the work that we're doing in the community as being a part of the prophetic legacy. I never looked at it like that, never thought about it in that manner. Usually when we think about following the sunnah, we're thinking about, you know what I'm saying, how you're making salat, you know what I'm saying, what type of clothes are you wearing, you know what I mean? Like, that's the sunnah, you know? But we never really taught that the sunnah is fighting for justice, that the sunnah is fighting and speaking for those who are voiceless, who have been marginalized. So here in Cleveland, as the Imam said, I ran 4 years ago for city council and I lost by 600 votes. And then I ran again, crazy, right? And won by 13 votes. And when we won, alhamdulillah, I became the first Muslim city councilman in Cleveland's history. It's an honor, it's a pleasure. But the service that we give to people, the work that we do for people is not because our goal is for them to become Muslim. That is not my goal. I don't serve my community because I want them to become Muslim. I serve them because I'm Muslim. Because I'm Muslim. And that is a part of our way. You know, it's a very beautiful, and I'm embarrassed, you know, even though I have 2 classes to finish up my master's at Bayan, and I appreciate Imam Suhaib, he wrote my recommendation letter, alhamdulillah, and I got in and got the Muhammad Ali Scholarship from Bayan, and 2 classes away from getting my master's in Islamic studies. And it's this ayats in the Quran, particularly the first verse that was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was Iqra. Read. Now, you and I both know that Allah knows all. He knows our weaknesses. He knows our strengths. He knows what we have the ability to do. And you and I both know from historical references that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, could not physically read. He was considered to be illiterate in what we consider illiterate is, right? My grandmother, my great-grandmother was illiterate, but was one of the smartest people I ever met. And I'm sure many of you also have those type of stories. So Allah understood the condition of the Prophet. So why would the very first words be to him something that he could not do? And as you know the story, he's in front of the angel Jibril. The angel Jibril says, read. The Prophet says, peace and blessings be upon him. And this is my verbatim. I can't read. Read. Man, listen, bro. I can't read, bro. Read. And I can't read. And it said that the angel squeezed him to the point that he was about to die. He felt he was about to die. And then his answer was, what you want me to read? I mean, if somebody right now would have put a gun to my head and said, Basheer, do a backflip, I'm like, I'm going to try my best to do a backflip, even though I know I can't do it. So was it really about the ability to do it, or was it about the submission? Submission. Iqra. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Iqra. Bismi rabbika ladhi khalaq. Read in the name of your Lord. Why is this important? Because what Allah was doing with the Prophet ﷺ is, don't rely on your ability. Better yet, don't rely on what you think is your ability. Huh? Bismi rabbika ladhi khalaq. Read in the name of your Lord. Don't rely on your ability. Don't rely on it. Don't rely on it, but you can rely on the Most High. And if you and I believe and submit to the Creator, Lord of all the worlds, then even the things that you believe to be impossible becomes possible. Becomes possible. It don't matter what you're going through, man. It don't matter your situation. It don't matter your struggle. It don't matter. With Allah, everything becomes possible. Right now, we are in troubled times. And this is a familiar chapter, isn't it? For Black and brown people in this country, this chapter that we're in, it is very familiar. Every chapter seems the same. Black and brown people in this country continue to be kicked, to continue to be spit upon. And racism is not just a hate between two people, but it is a complete structure that suppresses and oppresses people of color. But let's take it back. Listen to the conversation between Satan and Allah in the Quran when God tells Satan, bow down to Adam. Bow down. Bow down to Adam. Listen to what he says. He says, أنا خير منه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أنا خير منه. خلقتني من نار. خلقته من طين. He says, I am better than him. I'm better than him. I was created from fire. خلقتني من نار. خلقته من طين. He was created from dirt, from mud, from nothing, from dust. The very first racist was Shaitan, was Satan. And arrogance has a way of blinding you to the reality. Because fire in no way is more beneficial than earth. You and I both know that the only time that fire is beneficial is when you can control it. Even a spark can destroy a whole city. You see this in California and Australia and other parts. Just a spark of fire can destroy a whole city. But look at all that comes from the earth. There's no way that we can even survive with soil that was not fertile. So the very first racist was Shaitan, was Satan. So anyone that is racist is standing on a satanic foundation. And by the way, you have mental health issues as well. How do you say that you are better than somebody that you never met solely based upon something that you had no control over? That's called mental health issues. They got medicine for that, don't they? So what am I saying? What we are seeing in this world with police officers and so forth and so on across this country and different structures. And guess what? Some of the murders that you see are blatant and it does something to you. But what about the slow killing of teachers who are in schools who are also murdering our young Black boys and Black girls? Do you know that the demographic that's more suspended and disciplined than any other demographic are young Black boys? See, this does something to you to look on a screen and see this officer with his knee on the neck of George Floyd. That does something to you to see Satan in your eyes, to see him right there. But what about the fact that America has had its knee on the neck of Black people in this country since the very minute that we got here? And as Muslims, if you are not on the front line fighting for justice, then you are not following the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I don't mind fighting for Syria. I don't mind fighting for Palestine. I don't mind fighting for Kashmir. I don't mind it. I'll continue to do that. But you got to fight for Chicago and fight for Cleveland and fight for black and brown people who are being murdered and killed in this country. But you will never do it. You will never do it. As long as us as Muslims, oh yeah, racism is not far from us. Oh yeah, there's Muslims. There's Muslims who have also embraced racism. Oh yeah. How do you embrace it when you follow the sunnah of Bilal 5 times a day, calling the adhan in your masjids? Oh yeah, there's Muslims that are racist. But you want us to fight for Syria, huh? We need to fight for Yemen, right? I agree. But what about Cleveland, Desmond Franklin? What about Sandra Bland? What about George Floyd? What about Tanisha Anderson here in Cleveland, Ohio? Timothy Russell, Melissa Williams, and the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of names that you will never know of black people in this country who have been hung physically and hung spiritually when you look in the jail cells of America, and the majority of them are black and brown people. I don't want to hear your assalamu alaikums if you don't mean it. Do you mean it? You must be on the front lines. The Muslims must be on the front lines for justice. So when I ran for office, this was the community that raised me. And it didn't matter that they wasn't Muslim. They were my people. They're my tribe. And it is my duty to uplift them, inspire them, and motivate them, and to be patient with their trauma. Did you hear me? To be patient with their trauma. And even if you don't understand the trauma, it don't mean it don't exist. It exists. I was talking to one of my colleagues as we put out legislation to decriminalize marijuana here in Cleveland. Now in Cleveland, 100 grams or less, you can't get arrested for it. Now, if you have 102, I don't know what to say to you, but 100 and less, you're good. And one of my colleagues, he was upset about it, and he said, you know, when my son, and as the way that I'm expressing it, you'll be able to tell the culture of my colleague. He said, well, when my son goes out, I tell my son, don't break the law. And if you don't break the law, you won't get in trouble. That's what I tell my son. I said, isn't that something? That you have the ability to tell your son this, but our sons and daughters don't even have to break the law in order to be murdered. This is our condition here in America. You know, people ask the question, why are our people, our community, why are they so angry? Why are they so upset? I'm going to take 4 E's. I'm going to take 4 E's. And of course, if you are here with Imam Suhaib, you already know to take good notes, inshallah, right? The first E is environment. Environment. So let's take, if you're in Atlanta, we're going to use Buckhead and Bankhead. If you're in New York, I don't even know. Brooklyn is not the same place anymore. If you're in Cleveland, let's just say this. We're going to take the suburbs and the hood, the inner city, okay? Let's take a dog from the suburbs. His name is Smoochie, by the way. He got the new Jordans. He got sweaters and hats. He got better doggy insurance than some human beings. He got better health insurance than some human beings. If he goes missing, there's a billboard, $20,000 if you find Smoochie. You could take him to the doggy park. He plays with the other dogs nicely. But the dog that come from where I come from, his name is Killer, Brutus, Optimus Prime. We feed him hot sauce, gunpowder, hot Cheetos. You take him to the doggy park, he's gonna fight every dog, no doubt about it. You can be walking on the other side of the street, you pose no threat to the property that Killer is guarding, but yet and still he wanna jump over that fence to get you. Even the animals are upset where some of us come from. Now some of y'all don't move away, but for those who've been, you know what I'm talking about. Even the cats is mad, the pigeons, you gotta walk around them. The environment even impacts animals. Now imagine the impact it has on human beings. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, Basheer, well, you know, if the Black community stopped acting like crabs in the buckets, then, you know, it'll be better. I said, that's interesting. I said, that's a good point. But the question I want you to ask yourself is this. Who put the daggone crabs in a bucket? Because that ain't the natural state of crabs. I've seen crabs on beaches and they don't pull each other down. Why? Because the ocean is big enough for them all to benefit. But if you constrict resources, then of course the crabs are going to naturally do what they must do in order to survive. Let's pull each other down. So who created the environment? Who created the bucket that we put crabs in? I want you to keep that there. I went to a pet store. And in the pet store, they were selling sharks. And I was like, I just had a question. Like, first of all, if you can't tell, I'm Black. I'm like, who in the heck is buying sharks? You know what I'm saying? Like, who is buying sharks? So I asked the guy, I say, yo, how do you control the growth of the shark? I mean, because sharks get big. So how do you control its growth? He said, if you control its environment, you control its growth. For him, maybe I was just talking about a shark, but wallahi, I swear by God, that made my brain explode. If you control the environment, you control the growth. Isn't that just like human beings? The next E is exposure. How many of you, when you walked into somebody's house, as soon as you walked in, it smelled like death? You know what I'm talking about. It smelled like death when you walked in. Everybody, they playing Fortnite, they chilling out. You're like, God, Lee, it's stinking here. What's going on? Nobody in the house can smell it. Why is it that you can smell it, but the occupants of the house cannot? Because they're used to it. And that stench that you once smelled, if you stay there long enough, you'll get used to it too. So you have the environment, you have the exposure, and the last two is education and experiences. I close with this story. If you know about Lion King, I need you all to give me some reactions right now. Give me one of these right here. If you have watched The Lion King, there you go, Mariam. All right, Muhammad, I see you right there, man. If you've seen The Lion King, give me some thumbs up and some claps or something. All right, good. There we go. Thank you so much. And if you haven't seen Lion King, you are un-American, okay? Un-American. But before I do that, Sheikh, Imam, please, I know that I'm talking a lot, but I like to, inshallah, please take any questions that you may have.
No, go ahead and finish up these two E's. I'm excited to hear And then I think I have a question, then we'll turn it to the audience. This is amazing, man. Really appreciate you for
Mashallah, man. I love you, man.
just really doing it, man.
The last two E's is education and experiences. Now, education, you would think is just you sitting in a class. No, education is truly understanding, why were you created? Why are you here? What purpose do you have on this planet? You were not brought to this planet to be a problem, but you was brought to this planet to be a solution. A solution. And the last E is experiences. So as you know the story, Simba was next in line to be king. I can't wait to be king. You know what I'm talking about. You know that story. But there was an individual who hated Simba more than anybody else. Who was that? Scar. His own uncle. His own family. The very family that should have uplifted him wanted his demise. Why? Because of envy and jealousy. Anytime that envy or jealousy is in the mix, somebody may not only kill you physically, but they will strive to assassinate the character. So Simba was kicked out of Pride Rock and his father was murdered by his own brother. That's not nothing new for us. You study the Quran, you study the Bible, you see a bunch of family issues, don't you? That's why I want you to know the family issues that you're going through, the struggles that you're going through. Don't think that you are alone. Yusuf had some issues with his brothers too, didn't he? Prophet Noah had some issues with his son, didn't he? Yeah, we can go on and on. Ibrahim had some issues with his father, didn't he? We can go on and on and on with family issues. So your family issues, you are not alone. Matter of fact, whatever issues we got, we're not alone. And we all got issues too. And if you say you don't, lying is your issue. We all got issues that we're dealing with, that we're working on. So then Simba leaves, and then Simba meets these two individuals by the name of Timon and Pumbaa. Now, you may say Timon and Pumbaa was his friends at first. Not at all. Why? Because they understood the law of the survival of the fittest. They're like, listen, we don't only meet around here. If we don't trick this lion to believe he's something that he's not, we dead meat. So now you got this big old lion and blue bugs talking about Hakuna Matata. What lion does this? Only cartoons. But they had to trick him to believe that he was something that he wasn't. Why? Because they understood that in his fullest potential, there was no room for them. That's why you ain't no threat being Nicki Minaj. You're only a threat being yourself, being who Allah has created you to be, finding your purpose. How do I find my purpose? You find your purpose by finding that which you are most passionate about, and that is your purpose, and you walk in that. But then Rafiki came to Simba. And Rafiki said to Simba, as Simba was in this jungle, and for me that represents confusion, you know, the jungle, he was confusion, you know. And Rafiki come to him, he says, I know your father. He said, hold on, you mean you knew my father? My father's dead. No, correction, I know your father. Come, follow me. Simba follows him. Rafiki says, look into the water. Simba says, that's not me. That's not my father. That's my complexion. He says, look deeper. Fasa comes out and he says, Simba, you have forgotten me. Simba says, you're my father. How could I forget you? Listen. You have forgotten yourself. Therefore, you have forgotten me. And as the story goes on, Nyla comes, gets him out of the jungle. It always takes the woman to get the man out the jungle, by the way. And he goes back to Pride Rock. Why is this important? Because you are Simba. You are Simba. Every man and woman who is tuned in right now, the question I want you to ask yourself is, are you ready to go back and lead Pride Rock? And what jungle are you in? And why is it that you have not embraced your purpose and your passion to go back and lead Pride Rock? Because without you, it will not happen. America is Pride Rock. And you are the leaders of it. And you and I must live this prophetic legacy. And if you say that you are Muslim, just making salah is not sufficient. You must fight for justice. And there is no justice without love. And there is no love without justice. That is our goal. That is our fight. Whether you are a council person, whether you are an artist, or you're just trying to figure out your way. Whatever you do, fight for justice. And don't be afraid, because Allah is present and with you. Alhamdulillah. Imam, thank you so much.
That's it?
MashaAllah. I wanted to stop.
Allahu Akbar. That was certainly a big alhamdulillah. One of the things I think that a number of us are concerned about is we're seeing Muslims wavering on BLM. We're seeing Muslims even question the religiosity of people who I was accused of encouraging people to loot and riot, by an imam. As you said, this is a much more complex than simply dismissing people in such a horrid way. But my concern is that not only has this revealed challenges within the fabric of America we've known, but I feel also that this is a moment that also has exposed some of the racism and bigotry that many of us have been concerned about in our own house. Mm-hmm. How should we articulate to these people why this is religiously wrong? It is religiously wrong to turn your back on Black people. Mm-hmm. It is religiously wrong. If the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, if the people of Mecca asked me to work with him, I will work with him, even though they wanted to kill him, Muhammad biqatli. I mean, what kind of intersectionality now is happening? You're going to work with the people who want to kill you. And we're seeing Muslims dismissing. And I think that it to be honest with you, it's masking subtle issues of bigotry, anti-Blackness within the Muslim community. Any thoughts on how we can, perhaps push back on this in a way that's coming from the voice of a Black leader?
Imam, me and Imam Suhaib are very close. He is an advisor for me. Here in Cleveland, Ohio, I'm going to answer this question in this way, Imam. In Cleveland, Ohio, I was fighting for the decriminalization of marijuana. And religiously, I was concerned about it. I was religiously concerned about it. And we have something within our tradition in the Sharia that's called maslaha. Maslaha. And Sheikh, if I'm wrong or anything, please correct me. But maslaha is for the public good. And what it means is that even though you may not engage in marijuana or the smoking or whatever of marijuana, you recognize that the criminalization of marijuana has affected Black and brown people. And for that reason, as a Muslim, you should fight for that, even though you don't partake in it, right? Maslaha, basically for what's good for the people, for the public good, basically. I think am I on point, Sheikh?
Well, you called me and we had a discussion, and I told you I have friends that I graduated from high school with that are still in prison for selling crack cocaine. Mm-hmm. I went to prison at the age of 19. And when we think about the unjust nature of the system, if there's no justice, there's no Sharia. If there's no justice, there's no ruling. So our approach, when you and I discussed kind of the ins and outs, and I said that we should be fighting for the legalization of marijuana, not because we want people to become intoxicated. We're not going to stop people from becoming intoxicated. But we recognize that these are targeted bills, targeted laws to destroy the Black male and destroy Black families. And that is maslaha. How do we protect families? One of the maqasid of Sharia is the preservation of family. And then you know this better than me, Sheikh. You're my Sheikh in this, right? And that this has had a systemic impact on young men and women across decades. Incarceration, So the greater good now is, especially when it's based on an unjust system, right? The fact that there is no justice brings into suspect the outcome of that justice, which is predominantly putting young black men in prison for their formative years as adults.
You know what, man, Imam, you know, for anybody out there, I'm gonna share just a little bit with y'all. I ain't gonna go too deep, but this brother right here that is your teacher and is my teacher.
Hey, hold on, I got a phone call, man. Gotta change subject, bro. I don't know what you're about to say, man. Stop, man.
Well, I just want to say this, Imam, if I can, man. Like, I don't care what no person say. I don't care what their position is. I've seen Imam Suhaib, and when he came to Cleveland, we had some situations, man, that would make a tough person's legs buckle. And Imam Suhaib was there with me, and he didn't buckle. And for me, like, when you see people in action, that's what it's all about. You know, I don't get into all those conversations. I mean, listen, everybody's fight is not their fight. I understand that. You know, everybody's fight is not everybody's fight. I get that part. But the point I want you to understand is that if you're not fighting for justice, if looking on the television and seeing black and brown people being murdered in the way that it's being murdered and have been for the past 400 years, if that does not move you, then I got to move away from you, because obviously Allah has blinded you to what's absolutely apparent.
Yeah, and to hear, you know, I still can't watch all of George Floyd, man, because I'm 47 years old. He and I are in the same age demographic, and I know what it would take for me to call out to my mama, brother. You know what I mean? As a man with children, and Allahu Akbar. So in that vein, the idea of maslaha is why, and we need to be careful of the Sunni quietism that's out there, that's sponsored by the Saudis and the Egyptians and the UAE, that say that, you know, protesting is wrong. This is rising up as against the government. So did Sayyidina Hussein, did he do something wrong? Did Sayyida Aisha do something wrong? Did Abdullah ibn Zubair do something wrong? Did Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Ahmed, Rabi al-Adawiyya, all these people protested, so they're all wrong. This makes absolute. When Abdullah bin Mas'ud read the Quran in the Kaaba, in front of the Quraysh, as a means of protest. So we need to be very careful of the agents in the grass, man. The people who want us to look into the water and see a pig. We're lions.
Come on, man. They just
you know, and lionesses.
If you're scared, just say you're scared, man. Don't
get. If you're scared,
if you're scared, just say you're scared.
Say, Chuck scares me.
That's it.
Chuck and Karen. It's Karen, right? Karen.
Chuck
and Karen are scaring me. But let's turn it now to the audience. I know you have a few minutes and I got a few minutes, but I hope we can continue to bring you back, you know, because this is just part one.
MashaAllah. I would love to, Imam. Anytime for you, man. I love you so much. Anything you ask for me is done.
And the same thing. And let me just say, you know, to deflect from myself, when I went to Cleveland, I was giving a lecture in a bougie part of Cleveland. It was bougie. I look out and there's Basheer with the brothers, and they're like, we gotta go. Get in the car. And the next thing I know, I see Councilman Jones sitting in a woman's home whose son had been killed or grandson had been shot and killed. And just like didn't miss a beat. And that's what I look for in people, the lack of need to translate who we are. In any given situation, we maintain certain profound principles. Allahu Akbar. So let's take some questions from people. Feel free to either type in the chat or unmute yourself and share. I think also it's important that we keep an eye on what Basheer is doing, because he's about to run for mayor. We're going to need to raise some money for you.
Yes.
And listen, we all know.
Imam, if we are victorious, man, we can become the first Muslim of a major city in the mayoral position. So we have to raise about $1 million, and inshallah ta'ala, man, I love to travel around this country. And the reason why it's important, the reason why, especially as Muslims, is important to get involved in politics is because Malcolm said it best. Imam Malcolm said it best. He said that if you're not at the table, you on the menu.
Right. Right. And Sister Aisha is asking quickly about, then what about like the homosexual community and LGBTQ rights, and how does that work?
Imam, these are things I don't really get into. Everybody's fight is not everybody's fight, which I understand that. And everybody's fight is not everybody's fight, but we would want, and I'm not sure how this looks religiously, I'm not sure, but I just believe that people have a right to exist. They have a right to exist because they exist. And it's not for me to have them exist in any other way than they have chosen to exist. And for me, I have other fights to fight. I have other fights to fight.
Her question is actually directed kind of towards this idea of how the Prophet ﷺ worked with the people of Mecca. And I've told people, listen, you can work. Ibn al-Qayyim, he wrote actually in that moment where the Prophet said, I'll work with anyone, people of Mecca. If they ask me to do something good, Ibn al-Qayyim, then he lists that the Muslims can work with munafiqeen. They can work with, he even like jokingly said, hyperbolically, he said the people of Fir'aun. Muslims could work with anyone on good. Right? And this is my issue. When are we going to see people work with others on good the way that they're scared of always working on evil? Like, can I not work with, say, an LGBT community without promoting their lifestyle or affirming their lifestyle to make sure that children on the border are not being abused by guards? There's no moral dilemma in this. And we need to be very careful of religious teachers, and I say this and I really don't care anymore, who cause us to have moral dilemmas when things that are explicitly prophetic. A man with a knee on his neck is specifically prophetic. There's no moral dilemma. And when you see people start to get hiccups, you better back up. Right? And say, no. There's no moral dilemma in helping poor people. There's no dilemma. You walk into a jail. I remember I took a Senegalese sheikh into jail, brother, and he saw the difference between white inmates and black inmates, and he fell to his knees and wept. And he said to me, I didn't know America was like this. Because, he came to America, visions of grandeur, man. And he said, I never knew that this was what I said, Sheikh, this is apple pie, bro. This is what it is. This is the system. So when we start finding people, well, more white people will kill black cops than black people. Back up. And that's why one of my teachers said, if you really want to, from the Dar Islam movement, he said, if you really want to see the impact of gentrification, go look at white neighborhoods. Look how they live. There's no moral dilemma on these issues. So if I have trouble working with people on issues which are very prophetic and no moral dilemma, and I'm so insecure that I'm worried I'm going to lose my deen or I'm going to promote something evil, I don't need to be working. But if I'm confident in the haqq, I'm okay. I'm good. Okay, let's take some questions. Sorry, Sheikh. You got me excited, man.
I love you.
Dude, it's the suit, man. It's the suit.
You get me riled up, baby.
I got a baseball jersey on. I'm sorry, Sheikh. I'm babysitting all day, man.
You're perfect, man. I love you so much.
Love you too, bro. All right, here we go. Here, let's take some questions. I'll read them to you, Sheikh.
All right.
As a teacher, what can I do in the class to pay attention to issues of race? That's a great question.
The first thing is, don't teach your black students that their history began in 1619 or 1492. Don't start their history there. Their history began much before that. And be very mindful, because sometimes even people with good intentions can be tools of structural racism. Be careful when you look at the fact that the most disciplined demographic in schools are young black boys. Because people don't know how to educate boys. They don't know how to educate them. So you have to understand, the culture, right? Cultural competence. You can't speak a language that the people you're listening to don't understand. And guess what? And it's okay to say, I don't understand. And finding people who do understand and bringing them in to talk about it. One thing that I love about Imam Suhaib, this topic about politics, he always brings me in and allows me to express certain things. Why? Because I understand it. I understand it in a different way. And when I need something, I reach out to him. So you're not going to take, your car to get fixed by a surgeon unless he know how to fix cars. We got to get out of the habit of thinking that everybody knows how to do everything. That's not our way.
You know, Sister Khadija Mateen is someone who I love. Ibrahim Abdul Mateen, that is my dear friend. And she said something that I learned. I was in high school, and you know, we had I took a class called World History, because that was like Public Enemy, X-Clan. You know, you were trying to learn about what was really going on. Get me to the scrolls, right? So the lady kept saying Black people were slaves, and I said, no, they were enslaved. And she said, no, they were slaves. I said, my teacher, I got kicked out of class, by the way. I almost got sent to Job Corps. I said, no, they were enslaved. And then this dude in the class said, if they were enslaved, who enslaved them? Who enslaved them? And then I said, that's why that language, man, those words, right? And our beloved, she's here right now. She can please unmute yourself. But she said, we need to also make sure that the language we use is the haqq. Right? Allahu Akbar. And I think educators, and I love what you said, it's okay to tell people, I don't know how to talk about this. Teach me how to talk.
You know what? It's teachers like Sister Khadija. And isn't that beautiful? Her name is Khadija. It's teachers like this. It's teachers like this that it's so imperative that we inspire, that we remember in our du'as.
Right. And you can't teach what you're not living. You know, it's not what will I teach the students about racism or in the class, but what's the nature of the relationships that you're existing in? What's happening in your house? You see, if it's not showing up in the house, it ain't gonna show up when you step out, because the habit, the muscle that you've built is one of being either racist or sexist, or, you know, or having the issue with me being 68 years old and still alive. If you have those issues, it's going to show up in how you perform and how you, and what you give people. And it shows up even in how you practice your faith or present it to others.
Without a doubt. And you know, Imam Suhaib, one of the things that Black people did when we became Muslims is that some of our older generation threw away white supremacy and picked up Arab supremacy, right? So we stepped away from white supremacy, but then were made to believe that the closer you are to Arab, the closer you are to being a righteous person, being a righteous Muslim. And this is, as our beloved teacher, Sister Khadija has said, being very careful about language. But I want to say this real quick. I know we got to get ready to go. I want to say this. One of the things of how we're taking activism and implementing it in a political space is very important. One of the things that we're doing, number one, is making sure, as my family comes in very loud, they need to be quiet. Thank you very much. One of the things that we have to be very careful of is politics has a way of creating serious wealth. So in my community,
hold on, what does that mean? What does that mean?
There is no, go back that way, thank you very much. There is no business without politics, and there is no politics without business.
Right.
They're both connected. So I'll give you an example. When you go down to Atlanta, I graduated from Morehouse College, you go down to Atlanta, you will see Black wealth. And the reason why is Maynard Jackson, who was the mayor, played a major part because he said, you can't come do business unless this percentage is minority. So politicians has a way of doing things. So in my neighborhood in Ward 7 in Cleveland, the people who have been doing business, we've been putting them to the side. No. We want to see some new faces. We want to create some new millionaires, some new business. So right now, majority of my projects are being led by minorities, Black women, Asian women, Black men. And the reason why this is important is because if I have a city or a neighborhood that's majority African-American, they should see people working in their neighborhoods who look like them so that they can be inspired to believe that they can do the same thing. So politically, what we have to do is we have to be in position because politicians choose economics. They choose where the money goes. They choose what streets get done. I was driving around my community today. As I'm driving, the neighbors are just clapping and they're waving at me because I got their streets done. They haven't been done in years, in 10 years, 20 years. Now their streets have been paved, right? We're building schools. We're knocking down homes that have been turned into cemeteries because they've been sitting there too long, filled with asbestos and lead. You see, structural racism don't just come in the form of police, but it also comes in the form of where the resources go, right? What schools get funded, right? What buildings get built? Who gets the contracts? Right, so the CEO of Cleveland Clinic gave me a call and he said, Basheer, what do you want to do? I said, number one, Cleveland Clinic, you're one of the most famous hospitals in the world. You have to start spending more money with minority businesses. One contract can make a millionaire. One contract can change the trajectory of a family, right? So this is about money. It's about resources. It's about making sure that the community, that's why Muslims must understand this. No one will care about our issues as Muslims until we get to the table and make other people take it seriously. That's the only way that's going to work. I was on the phone the other day with attorney Keith Ellison, and everybody knows the story of George Floyd. It was attorney Keith Ellison that made sure those other officers were charged. You see, when you are a Muslim or you're striving to be a good person, not just Muslim, but a good person, you benefit all people. All people are benefited by good people. Even the environment and animals are benefit from good people. So attorney Keith Ellison was in place and he brought justice to the matter. And as we have faith that he'll continue to bring justice. So what I'm telling you and asking you, is that me running for mayor in the city of Cleveland is not something that will impact just the city of Cleveland. Just like Ilhan becoming congressperson didn't just impact Minneapolis. No, it impacts the entire world. Some of you heard when I was in city council and I said Takbir Allahu Akbar within city council. I got messages across the globe of people who were inspired and motivated. And I said, if people can say in the name of Jesus, then surely I can say Allahu Akbar. There's no problem with that. But the problem is that too many of us are afraid. We are scared. I don't know why. We're going to die anyway.
I know we got a shortage on time. Sister Khadija, thank you.
Thank you.
It's to the family. Basheer, we got to get you back, man.
That's right. Absolutely.
This was not enough. You know, we ask Allah to bless you. I think Ilhan's father, by the way, passed away yesterday. Forgive him and bless him. And I know Asad Manan had a question and some others had questions. So forgive us. I promise we will do our best to get Councilman Jones to visit us in person.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah.
What I'll do right here, Imam, is I will put up my my Instagram so everybody can follow me there and stay in contact with us on this journey. And inshallah, I would love to be able to come to your cities and be able to raise the resources. You know, I'm gonna tell you one thing, Muslims have money, but we just spend it where we wanna spend it. And you'll be surprised how many Muslims gave Donald Trump money, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Next time.
I'm asking you, the Muslims, man, please support us. And this type of fire is what we need in political position. Imam, I love you. I wanna say openly, I love you, brother. And Imam, you're not just talking, I've seen you in action. And I appreciate you living the legacy of not just teaching, but walking it. I love you, brother. I love you more than I can express. And your joy is my joy, brother. And your pain is my pain.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Barakallahu feekum, everybody. Jazakumullahu khairan. We have a number of great programs happening this week at the ICNYU.org. You want to check them out. We're going to be showing James Baldwin, I Am Not Your Negro. We have Sheikh Aisha is going to be sharing. Sheikh Fayaz, Sheikh Khalid, so many things are going to be happening. We really want to encourage people to come through. Thank you, Councilman Jones, again. Jazakumullahu khairan. Sister Khadija, thank you so much. It's great to see you as always. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.